Hello, friends. Someone once said an accidental meeting is the most non-accidental thing in the world, and perhaps this is true. Sometimes fate brings us completely different, sometimes even random people who play a great role in our life without even noticing it. And most likely, we also play such a role in other people's lives. After all, sometimes one simple word, when perhaps you did not mean special significance, can fundamentally change a person. And our next story will be proof of that. Gina Nomelli works as a paramedic in California. She dreamed about this profession all of her life. But 15 years ago, the girl immediately after college started working with the police, and there was an incident which she remembers well. It was in the fall of 2005, when young Gina just took up her duties as a law enforcement officer and worked for no more than a month. Her tasks included patrolling the city park. The territory was quite crowded, and at the same time it was rather calm. Children with parents, students, and office workers who came for lunch. But one day, walking past a small lake, she came across a beggar. He was rummaging in a garbage container and was looking for anything that could be eaten. Gina had seen this poor man before, but decided to approach him only that day. As the woman recalls, the weather was sunny and warm. Perhaps I was in a good mood, so I decided to speak to him. In her soft voice, she asked the stranger how long he had been in the street. But when he saw the woman in the uniform, the man only began to apologize. "I am sorry, I'm already leaving." This was normal behavior of a person at the site of law enforcement, but Gina reassured him and said, "You have nothing to fear. I do not mean any harm to you." So little by little, they started a conversation, and a little later, the homeless person told about himself. As it turned out, the man's name was Will, and for more than 10 years he had been living in the street. Once he had a job and his own house, and even plans for the future. He wanted to have children, but his sad story began after his beloved wife died of cancer. It was difficult for the man to endure such a loss and to start a new life. To get away from reality, the man began to use drugs. It was his protest to injustice. Well, then everything was as usual. Soon he was left without work and, as a result, without a home. And later on, he had to start living in the street. Gina was touched by the homeless man's story. Perhaps due to her age, inexperience, and naivety, she decided to take a risky step. The same evening, the girl brought the man clothes and shoes, which she bought secondhand, and she brought him some hot food, which made him very happy. Gina decided to visit Will the next day, and then she gave him $10 so that he could restore his documents. After all, as she believed, with this help, he would be able to find work quickly and change his lifestyle. She did understand this was risky because the homeless person could spend the money on drugs or alcohol, but something inside her suggested that she could influence Will by this good deed. She also helped him enter a healthcare organization for the homeless and even made him promise her that he would spend the $10 on documents and not anything else. At the time, the girl started having problems at work. She could not come to an agreement with her new partner, and since she was all alone in the city, having arrived from the suburbs, she began to spend more and more time with Will on a bench in the park. They could talk for a long time on different topics, and she noticed that the man began to change. He seemed to look like her father, whom she had lost so many years ago. This went on for more than a month. Gina sincerely believed that she was doing a good deed, but one day Will did not come to their usual place, and the next day he also did not appear. The girl came several days in anticipation of seeing the man, but he seemed to have disappeared. At the healthcare organization where Gina helped him to enter, she was informed that Will had not appeared for several days. Of course, she felt as if she was cheated. She believed the man and believed that she could change his life. But maybe it was a mistake. The reality turned out to be different. She did not know if he was alive and what had happened to him. Soon after the day Will disappeared, she quit the police and decided to fulfill her dream. Gina became a paramedic and got married. She moved to another city. Of course, she sometimes remembered her meeting that man, but she only smiled, remembering herself young and inexperienced. So this continued for 15 years, and most likely she would have thought of it for the rest of her life that she could not change the poor person's life. But October 25th, 2019 was a special day for her. Gina drove to a gas station, While she was paying at the checkout, she suddenly saw a man who was standing behind her and gazing at her intently. When she was about to leave the store, he stood up on her way out. The man was looking directly into Gina's eyes, and then he asked her, "Do you remember me?" He was standing there with tears in his eyes and asked if I remembered him. I thought for 2 seconds and then realized, "This is Will," the woman wrote. It really was Will, and as it turned out, he kept his promise. He restored his documents that day, and he even got a job on a construction site. The schedule was busy, and he could not leave the place for some time to appear in the park during the day. When he arrived in the park a few weeks later, he never saw the girl again. At his new job, he worked for several months. The man even got a promotion, but in another city. Having moved there a few years later, he met the woman who became his wife, and she helped him to believe in God. Now he goes to church every Sunday. Will regained his happiness. The man tried to find Gina, but every attempt was unsuccessful. Their ways had parted. But what is most surprising, that in 15 years, fate arranged their meeting again at a completely random gas station. It was not far from the city where they first met. On that day, 2 adults were crying like children, and neither of them were shy to express their emotions because their accidental meeting was not accidental at all. This story was told by Gina on her Facebook page. She wrote the following words: "We were crying in the middle of the store before we asked one of the employees to take a photo of us. I wanted to share this story because kindness is of great importance. Kindness can change a person's life. You may never know this, but Will is proof of that. Be kind in everything you do, and your kindness will come back 100-fold to you as well." Gina is sure that goodness lives in every person. Do not be afraid to show it, because one day you can save someone's life like that. Friends, do you believe that everything in our life is not accidental? Write your opinion in the comments. Well, that is all for today. Bye-bye.